Hello. So yet again, another urge to pick up my phone and click record. And yeah, there just seems to be a passion here to talk about this. And well, if you've seen the previous videos, or if you've been around the circles of non-duality for a while, you'll know what I'm referring to. But if you are new here, when I say this, I mean this existence. So this, what's here, there's something here. There's an aliveness, a being, a presence. And that presence, people call it awareness, consciousness. Nobody knows what it is, why it's here. It's not come from anywhere, and it's not going anywhere. And that's what I'm referring to. And the reason, well, there's no reason, but there's a sense here that the reason these videos are being made is because the sense of self seems to have dissolved here or collapsed. And then there's a recognition that, well, there is no self, there's never been a self. The self, or that me character, is completely imagined. So all the human bodies, including your own, move by themselves, not with an independent, separate self inside them. So going back to this isness, it's this aliveness, this being that moves everything, it does everything. And that's been recognized here through glimpses or moments of awakening, whatever you want to call it. Glimpses of seeing that this is timeless. That time is it's kind of like an illusion. It's an imagination. And I'm not sure if you that's watching this has had a clear seeing and has realised that that is the case, that the self is imagined, or if you that's watching this is completely identified with being a self character, with being a me character. And the message here is, either way, that's, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because that's just what's happening. I'm not giving any advice. I'm just talking about what's happened here. And in this video, I wanted to talk about what it's like here now, living in a world, an apparent world, after realizing that there is no self or no others. So relatively, if we look at the world, there's billions of people countries, lots and lots of things going on out there. In your imagination, which appears in this. Now that may make sense to you watching this, or it might sound completely insane. But this, in your direct experience, is everything. There's nothing other than this. There's no time, so there's nothing before this, there's nothing after this. And it seems that the majority of people, for whatever reason, are completely identified with thinking that they're this character inside the body, moving around the world, making choices. And again, there's nothing right or wrong with that. I think it's actually quite magical how this being can pull that off, really. It's incredible. The mind can't actually understand this. But anyway, the message here is that in some bodies, and it seems to have happened here, that sense of a self can dissolve or die, and then it's seen that it was never there. Now, in the story here, when that happened, it felt as if I grieved my own death while I was still alive. It was really uncomfortable. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't go to a GP or a doctor when it happened, although I was very close. Because mentally, it breaks you. It can break you. This is just my experience here. I'm not saying any glimpses or awakenings or true realizations are like this for apparent others. But in the story, it seemed that, there's about 3 or 4 weeks where I cried. But in that time, there was a moment of hysterical laughter. And I mean uncontrollable laughter at the whole comedy or the cosmic joke of it. And then there lies the freedom and the liberation that follows. That seems to be what happened here. So, I went through what seemed like decades of struggle and stress. And then the self died, totally grieved that, mourned my own death, if you like, in the story again. And then the liberation comes, and it's pure freedom. It's pure freedom because the identification with that imagined me character has dissolved. And that's not to say that thoughts can't still arise here of the imagined self, because that does happen. But it's now just seen clearly as a thought. So a thought is just a movement of energy that appears in this. It's got no value. There's nothing you need to do or act on with a thought, although you will say otherwise. If you feel like you are, if you've got a strong sense of a self, this message won't make sense to you. Maybe. So yeah, going back to the freedom and the liberation, the reason I mention in some of my videos is that this is the only real liberation and truth, is because if you are identified with being a self or a me character, you're going to be in a mess of psychological struggle. That's quite a harsh thing to say. I'll stand by that. If you identify with the me character, you will be in a psychological, you'll be a sufferer. Because that imagined me character wants this that's right here. So this is the only thing that exists. This is everything. But that imagined me character wants this to be something other than what is. Now this is timeless. It's impossible for this to be any other version, or there's no other way. This is as it is. And then you might say, well, no, I'm a quite happy and content person. Or you might think that others, and this is where, this is what I say, if you identify with the self, you will always suffer, because you're going to compare yourself with other selves. Boy, it's imagined. There's no you and there's no them. There's no me. And then you might say to yourself, well, these successful selves that have got all the material things, money, wealth, health, whatever. But again, I'll stand by it. If you identify with a me character or a self, you'll be in a mess of psychological suffering, because it could be things like, if you live in time, you're going to suffer even people are terrified at the thought of aging. People are terrified at the thought of dying or getting cancer, financial suffering. These are all things for you, for the self, for me. If it's seen clearly that there is no self, all them stories collapse and you're just left with what is. So that's why I say this is the only freedom. So all that striving to get, to chase, to achieve, or all that thinking back to the past of how my life used to be, it's just going to cause you suffering. And I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong with it either. I need to emphasize that because the thoughts are not even your thoughts, it's just what's going on. It's just what's happening. I would love to come up with a formula to show people this is what you can do to see this realization. But it's completely futile. There's nothing to do. It just seems that it happens in some bodies where the self can become exhausted. I don't know why these videos are happening. But it just seems to be wanting to share, what's happened here. And so I'm sorry if there's no advice on offer. I've had a lot of emails and comments asking, for advice. And it's not something I want to really go down that route with, because, I'm not a therapist or there's nothing to teach. This is the thing with any religions or spiritual traditions. There's nothing to teach. If anything, Advaita. In fact, every now and again I'll read some of the passages from Moody's White Fire book. This resonated with me massively for years. But a lot of the things in there, don't resonate either. Because a lot of the things in there are a teaching. I mean, it even says on there, teachings. So there's nothing to teach. How can you teach what already is? So a lot of the things in that book do resonate here, and then a lot of them don't, because it assumes there's a you that can do something. But there is no self. It's so obvious. If you try and look for that self, it's not there. There's no other selves. There's a body and there's other bodies, but the imagined me character is not where. Oh, it's not there. Where are they? So yeah, I mentioned earlier that I wanted to talk about what it's like functioning in this world after having this, no self-realization. And it's actually not that much different, because the self's never been. There's never been a self. So when I like saying it dissolves, but it doesn't even dissolve. It was never there. But there are changes as well that I've noticed. I find it really difficult in conversations, small talk, really, I don't know, because it's just all stories, and it can sound rude, this, but there doesn't seem to be a wanting or resonance here now to engage in small talk or stories about what people are doing and what they've done, because there's only this. And when it's seen that you are alone, and when I say you, I don't mean the imagined me character, I mean you as in this. So this space, this light, this being, that you could say that's what you are. And there's nothing here. So this is nothing appearing as everything that's in plain sight. And this is all there is. Now that can seem terrifying to the self, and it was here at one point in the story. But it's absolutely freedom. You know, I'm sitting here now, I could sit here all day, and it's amazing. Everything. Even just looking at a cup, or the sound of a magpie. This is everything. There's nothing to do. Lots of doing still happens, by the way. I mean, I don't know if you can see, I've been at work, you know, all morning. I've done lots and lots of admin, phone calls, emails with clients. So doing and activities is still happening. But there's no control, there's no striving, there's no psychological suffering about any outcomes. It just is what it is. And there's a lightness and a freedom to that. But this is not something I go around talking to people about either. So, you know, my neighbours, my friends, family, I've not spoke to any of them about it. Literally only my wife. And there's no need to. In fact, it's probably best not to. And then it begs the question why these videos are happening. And I don't know. But I appreciate connecting with people, and the comments and the emails and the phone calls that people have resonated with this message. A lot of gratitude. I'm really overwhelmed by it because I've got no one else to talk to about it. I mean, particularly, I don't know what it's like in other apparent countries around the world, but particularly where I live, you know. I mean, I don't know. You can't really look at another person and say, well, that person's had a no self-realization, or that person's a total me character. I mean, you can have a guess, but that's just your imagination. There is no me character. There's no one running the show. And there's a massive liberation in that. I think I mentioned in the last video about being triggered. It doesn't really happen anymore. I mean, it can happen, you know, anger and frustration can still arise, but it's not yours. It's not my anger, it's not my frustration. It's not my sadness. Or when I'm really, really happy and feeling on top of the world, it's not my joy, it's not my happiness. They're just feelings that arise within this space that you are. You can't control it, just like the weather. You can't control the weather, the feelings just change. I've got a knock at the door. Sorry about that. Had a Amazon delivery at the door. With Christmas coming up, my wife's been sorting some presents out for my 2 boys. So that'll be what that is. So yeah, I forgot what I was saying. I think about being triggered, maybe. Sorry, I've totally forgot. So anything that arises in this, any appearances, it's got nothing to do with you. And I mean any appearances, so anything that moves in your vision, or any sounds, smells, tastes, feelings, touch, sensations, thoughts, they're all just a phenomena, a flicker, a movement of energy in this. And it's timeless, so it comes and goes. It doesn't mean anything. It's always just only ever this. It's an absolute, it is a joke. There's definitely it's funny really, there's definitely a comedy to this, and you know, because again, for decades I was running around like a dog chasing its own tail. Hamster wheel on hamster wheel. Or chasing that dangling carrot. And it's completely futile. But the funny thing is, all that seeking is this too. So there's nothing right or wrong with anything. And that can trigger you. It can trigger the me character by saying things like that. And I get it. If you are identified with being a self and a me character, I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, you're going to live in a psychological mess of suffering. Maybe it's a bit harsh saying that, but that's how that's what it feels like here anyway. So apologies if you are a completely identified self person that is completely content. But then I don't suppose you'd be watching this video if that was the case. So any seeking or any striving is not yours, it's not for you, you're not doing it. But you'll claim that you're doing it. So if you have done something in the past, a huge achievement that you're really proud of, and you're taking credit for, you didn't do that. It just happened by itself, and then you claimed that you did it. And equally, if you've done terrible things that you're guilty and ashamed of, you've not done that. It just happened, and you're claiming that you've done it. There's no you to claim that you've done it. So I don't know what else to talk about really. You know, conversations with others here just happens as it always has. There's no attachment to any problems or triggers, because this is brand new. It's always brand new. This aliveness, it's never had it before. It can't have a next. It's just this. It's brand new. It's ageless. And then I think if it is seen clearly, then I mean, here anyway, all that psychological mess, that psychological noise and stress and suffering, it's completely gone. It's an absolute relief. And when I say it's completely gone, I really mean it. It's completely gone. Now, a thought can still arise, but it's gone. A thought is nothing. A thought is literally just a movement in this, and then it's gone. This is brand new. You know, I've done things in the past that I'm ashamed of, and I'm not proud of. I feel guilty of. It's all collapsed. There's just this. It's brand new. And that's going to trigger someone. That could trigger you watching this. How dare you say that? You know, you have to take responsibility for your actions and things you've done. And I get it. But there's no you, there's no me. You know, I've also done things in the past that could be seen as a triumph, a massive achievement. You know, successful things. I have not done any of them. There's just this. It's brand new. Well, yeah, I'll leave it there, but thank you again for watching and the comments. It's really appreciated. And yeah, thank you.